right? Different students have different preferences, and these preferences change by topic, right? Like if I have to learn history or geography, I like a conversation actually. But if I have to learn math, I just want my textbook. Give me a textbook and leave me alone, I'll figure it out. But if I have to learn science, I have to do projects. I have to work with it, I have to do something about it, right? So different topics, different subjects, we all learn differently. So we have to support all of that full range, and that's kind of why we said it's not about taking content from some publisher, right? You can take content from some publisher, they'll give you 5,000 pieces. But imagine if the web were 5,000 pieces of content, right? So you want the full web of content so that anytime you want to learn, whatever you want to learn, you have access to the type of material you need to learn. So we have a complete distribution. Clearly the big focus happens to be in math, science, and social studies. Humanities is not bad, which covers English. And there are a lot of cross-curricular material that spans multiple subjects, right? And a lot of your favorite material is all of your favorite material should be there. So we have over 5,000 educator curated collections and assessments. So this is an example of some educator who has put this together, and you can remix. Remix means make me a copy and I'm going to edit it now. It's your copy, you can do whatever you want, right? This teacher can say, watch a video and here's a question. You can say, no, my style of teaching is, here's a question first, right? First I want you to think about it, and then I want you to study it, right? So different teachers are different, and we don't take a position on what's the best way to teach. I'm saying, just as different students are different, every teacher is different. So we allow you to remix, right? And so we have massive number of collections, but we kind of feature 5,000 to 10,000 of these within Guru, so that when you come, you'll find high quality stuff. And then these collections are organized into courses. A course is typically has units and lessons and collections and assessments, and it's completely filled with assessments throughout, because the whole idea of a maps for learning or a navigator for learning is we need data continuously. We need data about where you are. That's how that blue arrow keeps moving for you, right? So we kind of need to do, we have built all of our courses in this way. So like I said, we believe that the system that we have now is good. It's working. It works for some of us. So it is not about replacing classrooms. It's not about saying our students will all learn on their mobile phone forever, right? So it's about so we kind of looked at, so what do all the researchers have to say here? What does the learning scientists at major universities, Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, what do these guys have to say about what produces learning? And we looked at their work, and we said, oh, let's actually build some of these tools for the teacher, because we now know that this produces learning and that the teacher can use these in the class. So the first one is basically this idea of real-time assessment. So Harvard did this study or research for several decades to establish that if in class you know exactly where every student is on a given quiz, then you can adjust your class, you can adjust your teaching to support that. Except that the teacher has no tools. How do I know? If all of you are sitting in my class here, how do I know what did you get, right? So we cannot build this tool for real-time assessments. So you ask a question, students answer right away, then there is this heat map. So the teacher kind of is watching this heat map. She's actually projecting the heat map onto the whiteboard. So all the students can see how they are answering and how they are performing. And then she'll say, okay, this student has a problem in some of these questions. All of the students don't seem to get these two questions right. so let me reteach, or let me pair up this student with this student and things of that nature. So she'll decide how to kind of use the classroom to actually support all the students with each other, support all the students with her expertise, right? So there's one tool that we have built called real-time assessments. So here's a bigger version of that screenshot, right? So the key is to realize that personalization is not just something that the machine does. The machine's job is to help the teacher. The machine's job is to help the student, right? But at the end of the day, learning happens when humans interact, right? And learning is a sequence of human interaction. So we think about Guru and the role of the machine as mediating these human interactions, right? Enabling these human interactions. That's what the role of the machine is. But it has to do it in an intelligent way. Is Uber popular here? Yeah? So the car, the taxi hailing service. So now imagine what happens in that scenario, right? In that scenario, you want an Uber car, you want to ride to the airport, and you call for Uber. Then what Uber is doing is actually linking you with the driver, right? And that's how we see this, is it's about linking people together so that I can benefit, right? Now, in the case of Uber, in the case of Amazon, in the case of YouTube, it's all a transaction, right? I get a ride from here to the airport, I reach the airport. But learning doesn't happen that way. I can't, have one conversation with you and no photosynthesis at the end, right? So learning is a relationship. That's why we say it's a sequence of human interactions that produces the outcome, right? So we need to kind of enable, the machine's role here is to enable the human interactions, right? And after you take your Uber ride, you rate the driver, right? Now in this context of rating the driver, we are used to thinking of humans as users of the machine. So we think about it as user interface, user experience, right? But in this case, who is using whom? The machine is using the human. The human is telling the machine, this driver is a 4-star driver, right? So, because you are not benefiting from rating the driver, the machine is benefiting because it's a reputation model and so on. So the way we have constructed this whole thing is about humans and machines are participants in a network. And the role of the machine is to enable human interactions, right? So we work with Johns Hopkins on what they call as cooperative learning. Cooperative learning means that if students learn in teams, they'll do better. If I just learn, if you learn as an individual, you'll do far worse. But if 3 of you were part of a team, and my assignment was for the team, right? My score was for the team. Then typically what happens is, particularly amongst teenage boys, is they'll say, forget it, I'll just get an F grade. I won't work on this homework. But if I'm part of a team with 2 other people, they'll call me the previous night and say, hey, Pram, did you do your part of the homework, right? So there's a support structure. But if I don't understand something, my team members will help me out, right? So they kind of did 3 decades of research, 30 years, and said, hey, if only we could just organize the class into teams and continuously keep shifting the teams. After every 2 weeks, you're part of some other team. But all the assignments, all the grades are given out to teams, right? Now, it's a phenomenal idea, very simple idea. Every teacher I've talked to says, yep, that makes sense, except that, how do I implement this in the class, right? So this is kind of where we built this tool called Teams, and you can check that out as well. And the last example I'll give is this tool called peer grading that we are still working on. We'll release it in the next few months. The idea is if you let students grade each other, right? Like if you have to have the teacher grade every time, then you have to do multiple choice. because the teacher doesn't have the time to read everybody's essays all the time, right? But if you let students write essays or show their math homework in detailed steps and let them grade each other, but you have to give them the rubrics for grading. You have to kind of work with the student so that they are not just grading, they're not saying 8.5 out of 10, but they're actually giving feedback. They're writing. The student who is grading is actually writing, right? What research shows, and this research comes out of University of California, Los Angeles, what research shows is students, when they engage in peer feedback, the student who is providing the feedback now knows what is a good answer. So their own understanding of what is expected goes up. The student providing the feedback, their language improves because they take their job very seriously. And student providing the feedback kind of learns the material from other students' responses. And students receiving the feedback get 6 times as much written feedback as they would otherwise get from their teacher. And by the end of the first year, the quality of students' feedback is on par with the quality of teachers' feedback, right? Now how difficult is it to take a class and say, okay, your homework is going to be graded by those 2 people, right? How difficult is it? That's not very hard, except to do it, it's impossible if you don't have a tool. If I had a tool, I can say, okay, A is graded by B, C, and D, B is graded by X, Y, and Z, and stuff like that. I can easily map it out, and then the scores come, and the tool does all the mapping, right, and managing of the whole thing. But if you don't have a tool, then you are kind of stuck, because it's a simple idea. Everybody agrees that this sounds right, not just, the research is good, right? So this is what we are kind of now releasing soon. So finally, we'll come to this whole thing about, so how does the student learn? So yes, we focus on how do we build roads? What are